call to order the meeting for the Historic Resources Board, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody, please put your microphones on.
Turn
your cell phones off, yes. Okay, let's do roll call.
Ernest Franco. Here. Darlene Boyd.
Here.
Scott Friel.
Here.
David Medeiros.
Here.
Quorum, thank you.
Okay, now we need to look at the selection of a chairperson and vice chairperson for the Historic Resources. And how do we do this process?
You nominate someone or
Yeah,
volunteer?
Or you volunteer? Well, I'll volunteer. If he doesn't do the chair else.
I volunteer Ernest, since he's been chair before. I mean, I nominate.
You nominate? Well, we're going to have a... Did you throw your hat in the ring?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, I would say you're kind of up next, but I'll go ahead and nominate you.
Oh, thank you.
And then, so now we're kind of split.
Yes.
Where we go from there? We have to vote on it. We have to see. So if I'm going to nominate, then we need a second.
I'll do first.
That's right. You will?
You'll take over.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It looks like.
So it looks like, are we going to vote?
We need to vote. We need to go ahead and...
You only have one.
We have, okay, we only have one, so we don't need to vote? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to need to vote.
Okay. Sounds good.
And
Okay.
a vice chair.
We need a vice chair.
Yes, now we need...
I'll nominate Ernest.
David.
I'll second Ernest's nomination. If you want to.
I third it.
Do you want it?
It's just till the end of the year, right?
Yeah. Painless.
You're selected,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, are we okay with that?
You need
Okay.
a second, and then you say
Okay,
to
you
vote on.
second it? Do we need to vote on that then?
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe so.
let's take a vote. Okay. All those in favor of having Ernest Franco as our vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody oppose? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, time for public comment. Does anybody want to make a public comment?
You don't have any speaker cards.
Okay,
That's not on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
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 that's correct. Anything that's not on the agenda.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, this is the informal project review, any potential future project applicants that we need to review.
And staff has nothing to...
And staff has nothing to tell us, okay. Consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted with one motion authorizing actions indicated for those items so designated. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the Historic Resources Board, a staff member, or a citizen. And what we are going to do is approve the affidavit of posting agenda, approve the minutes for May 2nd, 2017 meeting, approve the minutes for the July 10th, 2017 meeting, approve the minutes for August 1st, 2017 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that the consent agenda be approved.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, action items. Consider public structure and residential structure to recognize during Preservation Month. All right? And I believe the two structures that we have are the Mason's Lodge, or Texas Mission.
Take one at a time.
Here we go.
That's picture.
Well, I don't know if staff's going to speak to that, or do they want me to speak to it? 'Cause
I think you're better.
okay, well, I was asked several meetings ago to committee on selecting a residential and a business or historical building. And in the process, we asked the community to volunteer, and I believe Ernest was also invited to help out with the committee. And we did come up with 2 candidates. Before I say anything about that, I'd like to also enter in for the record that in asking the community, the historical San Juan Bautista Historical Society stepped up to the task and provided candidates for this year's selection. And because of that, they also provided a resolution. And what I thought were a good member of the community that would provide this information to us. Based on the information that was provided to us, I am in favor of approving a resolution, making a recommendation for the Planning Commission to also make a recommendation to the City Council based on our selections for this year. And I believe this month is Preservation Month. And whatever we do today will be approved. If it gets approved, will be announced at in time, I believe, for the 17th of this month for the City Council.
15th.
So the 15th? Oh, I thought it was the 7th. Okay, the 15th of this month. So anyway, we've got the selection, and we selected 2. One of them was the Texas Lodge here in town. For the work that they did recently, and also the Casa Juan de Anza. And that one is a mixed-use type of building or unit. And that award will be for a private resident or a resident award that will be awarded. And that's it. Any questions?
Anybody
No.
have any comments?
Good choices. What will happen if we do make a selection and approve these 2 selections today, a letter will be written for the owners of these buildings, and also what we did last year, as you can see this picture, a plaque was made up in a pictorial. It would be this picture in a frame will also be presented to the awardees.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any comments about this?
Yes, I have Carl Long.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, you want public comment first, or?
Yes, public comments are fine. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the Historic Resources Board. Cara Vonk, and I'm a member of the board of the San Juan Bautista Historical Society. And our president, Vanda Guibert, could not be here today, or she would have been here. In any event, I think that these 2 properties, the owners have shown exceptional stewardness, if that's the word, of preserving these buildings. The Texas Masonic Lodge has a beautiful paint job, and we've been trying to promote a 3-color paint palette for quite some time, which they did, and I think it turned out really beautiful. And then Casa Juan de Anza, Ms. Renzel has really gone way beyond the call of duty. She has restored the roof on that building according to Secretary of the Interior standards, and had an architect who specializes in historic preservation assist with that. And then the latest is the plastering, beautiful job again. And it should last another 100, 150 years, hopefully. So I would encourage you to go ahead and approve these 2 candidates. Thank you very much.
I was going to go through the resolution step by step and make sure that Vanda got recognition for all the work that they, and including the Historical Society as well. So, but anyway, thank you for saying that.
Any other comments? So,
I think that we recall the city of history, We want people to come here. And there's no reason to come here unless we've got something to show. And these folks have really sparked up their buildings, and that's a reason to come in and see it.
It is.
In the aggregate.
It is. And both of them have plaques too, right, for the walking tour?
Texas Lodge doesn't yet, I don't think. That's on the next phase.
Okay.
It will have one, though.
So, do we vote on this now?
Shouldn't I make a motion to accept these two to present and
Yes.
recommend to the planning commission?
Yes, you should, thank you.
I'd like to make that motion right now, that we have these both resolutions to be submitted for the planning commission to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, okay. Comments, Historic Resources Board members, okay. Any other comments that anybody has? The only comment I'd like to make at this time is I did receive from, through Vonda and Cara, something about streets, the historic designs for streets and stuff were in the downtown historic section. It's something that I would like to put on our next agenda to discuss, because it's something that didn't get passed and included. So I believe that's going to be, so I'd like to put that in the next agenda. Does anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest to the Historical San Juan Bautista Historical Society that maybe they would contact the youth group for the San Juan Bautista youth group and maybe help out in next year's selection. And if you would like me to help you with that, I would like, let me know again. That.
The youth commission, you mean?
Yeah, youth commission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Youth group or whatever, yeah. I think that would be good to get them involved with that.
Any other commissioners have any more comments?
Next year's election.
Okay. City manager.
I have a few things related to some historical items, but I'm wondering if they're on the other agenda, they're on the planning commission agenda. So maybe we should just wait and go through them there.
That sounds good.
I think everybody's going to be here. You're going to leave. You guys are planning to stay for the planning commission? Yeah. So I'll just hold that.
Okay.
It's combined with the other report.
Okay, that sounds good. How about the city planning? Mr. Kennedy?
No, nothing. I have nothing right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Historic Resources Board meeting adjourned. On to the next one. Okay. Let's look at, I'm going to call to order I'm sorry. I'll find the correct agenda here. Okay. I want to call to order the Planning Commission meeting now. Shall we have a roll call, please?
Ernest Franco. Darlene Boyd.
Here.
Scott Friels.
Here.
David Medeiros.
Here.
Okay.
We have a forum, thank you.
All right. First thing is our selection of a chairperson and vice chairperson. We have selected me as chairperson of the Historic Resources Board. I will volunteer to be chairperson of the Planning Commission also, unless there's somebody who wants to nominate someone else.
So moved.
Okay, so moved, okay. Then the vice chairperson, shall we?
Oh, we have to have a vote first.
We have to have a vote, okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any who oppose? Okay, the ayes have it. Now let's select a vice chairperson
Would Commissioner Medeiros be selected for the vice chair?
of Planning Commission. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those-
It's only for a year, huh? No.
That's,
Not even
No,
left.
I'll accept that if you guys, if you approve it.
If we approve it. Okay.
We can vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's vote on it. All those who are in favor of Mr. Maderos as vice chair for the planning commission, say aye.
okay.
Any who oppose? Okay. Mr. Maderos is vice chairperson of the planning commission. Public comment now. Do we have any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda?
Don't have any speaker cards.
Okay. Informal project review. Do we have anything about projects that we need to know about? That, not on that, okay, nothing on that, okay. 8 action items. Action items, we need to approve the affidavit of posting agenda, we need to, do we do this one at a time? Okay.
Well, I'll go, let's see. Yeah, we got some apples in there. Okay.
Okay, so is there any discussion we should have on that, or does somebody want to make a motion to approve that?
This is not a consent agenda. This is an action item on agenda, so each one has to be taken individually.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to 5A, move to approve the posting of the agenda,
Why did that get to be done under an action item?
because you've got others that need discussion.
All right. I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any who oppose? Okay, the ayes have it.
Should have been under.
Well, let's make the next one there.
Now we're going to consider Resolution 2018 approving selection of residential structure for Preservation Month.
And that is the,
That's the, Deanza House,
Also the end.
or House of Deanza, yes.
Residential one.
Public, there's a public
Is
one.
there any comments?
Any comments from the public? Again?
No comments from the public. Any comments from the,
Well, again, I just want to reemphasize that all this information was with the assistance of the San Juan Bautista Historical Society, and with the help of Ernest, and for the record, Rhonda Eber, who did a lot of work on this, drafting up the resolutions, and also, I believe, the letters that will be sent out as well for the staff. And I just want to thank the society and Vonda for her help. And that being said, for the structure itself, I'd like to say that the month of May is the National Preservation Month, and the historical preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development. And it reads on as the revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas the City of San Juan Bautista supports the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties intended to promote responsible preservation practices that help protect our nation's irreplaceable cultural resources, and whereas the function of the Planning Commission is to guide the orderly development of the city in accordance with the general plan and or policy documents, and whereas the Planning Commission wishes to recognize the property owner whose rehabilitation of a mixed-use building reflects the city's goals to maintain its historical ambience by preserving and rehabilitating the structure at 103 3rd Street, the Adobe, and also recognizing at the same time a structure at 407 2nd Street, which is the Lodge, Texas Lodge.
I think that's the next item.
I know, but I just want to throw that in there, and we can vote on them separately. And consulting with Mike Garavaglia of Garavaglia Architecture Incorporated, specializing in historic preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation, engaging local craftsmen preserving the character defining features of one of the last few remaining adobes in San Juan Bautista, maintaining a welcoming and inviting appearance to one of the gateways to the Nationally Registered Historical Downtown District, extending the economic life of the adobe, modeling responsible stewardship of an historic building. And also at this meeting, the Planning Commission of San Juan Bautista, on behalf of the citizens, acted to recognize efforts of Emily Renzel in renewing an existing resource at 103 3rd Street and energizing the local economy, and thanks for her for being a responsible steward. So that being said, I would like to make a motion as a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recognizing Emily Renzel during the National Preservation Month and recommend to the City Council. I'll make a motion.
I second it.
5. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any who oppose? Okay, the ayes have it. So now we're going to consider a resolution approving the selection of commercial structure for preservation month.
Yeah, what was the resolution number for the ANZA?
2018-05.
05.
05, and this will be 06.
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Yes. And also, pretty much is said for the structure on 407 2nd Street, which is the Texas Lodge building. And that being said, I'd also like to make a motion for a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recognizing Texas Lodge number 46 of the free and accepted Mason during National Preservation Month and recommend to the City Council.
Second motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the...
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
And that's going to be 2/18/2006. Okay.
So we're going to now reschedule the June meeting because this currently conflicts with our primary election. And do we have a June calendar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look at it. Thank you.
Yes, because you want...
Yeah, move the page to the top.
Okay. Here we go. Okay.
That works better. Okay, thank you.
So June 5 is our regular meeting.
Yeah, June 5 is our regular meeting, and the city council meets on the 19th, correct?
That's right.
Want to go 12?
So we could do the 12th. Does anybody have any objections to that? You're checking your calendar?
Yeah, I think we can, that should be double check. I should be okay.
That should be okay with you? How about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna check.
Yep.
Okay, staff, company, you're fine with this?
That'll work.
Okay.
That'll work.
All right. So we need a motion then to meet on the June 4th?
I think we can just do consensus.
Okay,
What is an action item?
Consensus of everybody to,
consensus. Well, I'm available that day, I know. Okay.
well, at 6 o'clock.
June, yes, 12:06 p.m. Okay. Now we get to approve the planning process for the centennial celebration. So, do we want some comments at this point?
What she has to say?
There is also in the binder.
Okay, so I had a meeting with Wanda and another, I can't remember her name. Georgiana, about this event. And what we discussed, and we wanted to run by the Planning Commission, is this proposed process because this is a very important event for the city. It harkens back to the Fiesta days. And so it's going to take some pretty significant event planning. It'll be the city's only major self-driven event for the year, like where we really promote it and bring people into town. Similar to a typical event like the rib cook-off, but the city wants to really promote this event since it's such a huge milestone. So the way that we want to go about it, or that we're just brainstorming, and that I wanted to run by the Planning Commission, because we're going to start to move on this process, is first have the Historical Society, since this is a historical event and we are trying to replicate the way that this event would happen, annual event would happen in the past, have them recommend a team, maybe 3 to 5 people, to work with me. I would be the event coordinator because the city's going to promote this event. We're not going to go, at this point we aren't going to go outside the city to promote this event. That once I get together, they recommend the team would get together with myself. I would chair it. We'd come up with a game plan, and then come back to the Planning Commission with the proposed activities, the sequence of events, the budget, the concept, just the whole event package. Within the next couple of months, we come up with the plan and the proposed event package. Once you guys approve it, you'll tweak it, approve it, and then we take it to the City Council. I'd like to get all this done before the budget cycle ends at the end of June, therefore I can put this...
This June?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll talk about it on the 12th.
So we can put this into the budget if we need funding. This doesn't have to be, this isn't the final plan, but it's the high-level timeline, maybe the agenda of events that would go into the Fiesta. Is it a 1-day, 2-day event? It's not the detailed plan, and we'd continue to update along the way. This is a high-level plan and concept, I would describe it. So that's a proposal. The background is that the Historical Society had reached out to staff for support on this event, and I thought it was a really good event to partner with the Historical Society, and a good event for the city to take on for its own promotion. The analysis here is the city of San Juan Bautista is a city history, so we feel it makes sense to make this anniversary event a huge event that celebrates its heritage among the residents, markets the town, and also brings in visitors. Financially, the event will be modeled after the previous Fiesta type events, a lot of volunteerism in that. And then the alternatives is that this could be, well, it could just be a more low-key event similar to the historical walk, where it was a little bit more locally marketed and not as promoted as, say, some of these festivals.
Either high visibility or just sort of a local.
Yeah, more of a local deal.
Okay. Can I ask a question at this point? It says on background, they asked staff for help with this event, staff meaning you, basically. Okay.
I think they originally may have reached out to Ed. And I think one of the first meetings, even before I got involved with this job, they had been planting seeds around this event as its importance. I think it was mentioned in the fall. So there's been 3 or 4 discussions. Yeah, and then in the last 2 weeks, we started to really think, okay, how are we going to put this event together? How is it going to be driven? How are we going to plan it? I think initially that we had discussions around the concept. Do we replicate the old festival? And so,
The old festival.
yeah.
Can I make a suggestion at this point? I know that we have a strategic planning committee and that Shauna has found somebody to be a business promoter. They had the subcommittee of business promotion. I think that we ought to include that person
Okay.
on this, or that subcommittee on this, because, you know, they're about promoting the city anyway. And get some of their energies and ideas into this. So I would like to make that suggestion.
Who was that person?
That's Maria Elena Madrigal. And I'm not sure, there's somebody else on that committee, I'm not sure who the other person is. But,
So she's on the strategic planning committee now?
well, Shauna picked her out personally and approached her
Okay.
and actually recruited her, so she's on it, yeah.
And she's a event promoter or?
Well, I would say she has a lot of marketing background.
Okay,
She has a lot of marketing background, and she really knows what she's doing,
good.
okay? So, she probably knows a lot,
Good.
okay? Are there any other suggestions, ideas, comments at this point?
Well, this is the first, I think most of us have heard about it. I'm not sure really what the Planning Commission has to do with it, but if we're going to model this after the fiesta that we used to have, that's 2 full days and 2 nights. And I remember the planning process for the next year happened the day after it was over. It was a huge event. So there's a lot to do. And it's going to be tough to squeeze. This is going to be, I wish we kind of got this sooner, but this is going to be a bugger to squeeze in a month to figure out how much this thing's going to cost. We could check with the church too and see if they still have all their tables and chairs and stuff we used to use. I'm sure they do down below for this thing, but boy.
Commission then contacted? Yes, it was there, was the big event.
Yeah.
When's the date? Is it going to be, the event's going to,
I think it's in the committee, but the task force going to decide this.
you have a date
There's
for
an
it?
anniversary date
September.
of next year, not this year,
Next year. You have next year.
of 19, of 19.
The Mission Fiesta is June 24th. That's the anniversary of...
That's the anniversary of the founding of the mission.
June 24th.
And,
Yes, the closest Sunday to that date.
yeah, and that was also the date for the Fiesta Rodeo at the time.
And that was...
And they had a morning parade, they had a barbecue in the afternoon, and a rodeo, and a dance on Saturday nights.
Friday night, Saturday night, dances,
Yeah.
a parade on Saturday, a parade on Sunday.
So if you're going to replicate that, I mean, that's a big, tall order for next year.
Well, I could be getting it wrong. Was there another festival that was more around like volunteers where they had like bake sales and a dance?
That's it.
Well, the original pageant that they had was actually kind of a big deal too, but I think it morphed into a larger celebration with the rodeo and then the 2 parades. So they had what they call the kiddie parade on Saturday night, and then Sunday was almost a 2.5-hour parade, and then the rodeo kicked in right after that. And then we had all the barbecue went on at the Mission because we used to have the huge pits, and this was all the serving area back here during the whole thing, and then most people will transition.
Was there a breakfast and a bake sale? Was that part of it? Were there two big festivals, or is that the only festival?
That's the only one I remember.
Okay,
And the pageants were like 1920s, 1930s, that's way before
Unfortunately, Vonda's not here.
before my time.
Yeah, I think they were going more towards the pageants and the volunteers, and they had...
Well, we had volunteers. It was all volunteers, that's the only way we pulled it off.
Yeah. Is this a one-time event or annual?
This is a one-time
150th
150-year celebration of the anniversary of the town, my understanding, not the mission.
Okay, that's different.
The town.
It's the town.
Not the rodeo, it's
So, okay, gotcha.
the town. Because when were we incorporated?
Yeah, I don't know if there was something from the town.
1869.
Yes, I know.
Everything always been with the mission.
It's always been with the mission. Actually, it was a town thing, but
It was for the mission. It was for the mission.
yeah.
But
But that town got the mission.
Yeah.
that was the fiesta of yesteryear, was for the mission. But it was an all-volunteer event. I mean, that's the only way we could have pulled it off.
You had to wear clothes of the period. You could be thrown in jail if you were caught without certain outfits. There were all kinds of things going on.
That was long. That was
It was like,
that was the
you know, there was
1920s.
like a week of preparation, and really got the volunteers involved because
It was pretty much a year of preparation. I mean, Leonard
yeah.
pretty much started the day after the
Yeah.
thing ended.
yeah.
Which is why they might have to be doing this in September rather than June. They give them more time to prepare.
Well, if the city incorporated in September, then that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
what,
what I'm wondering, is it the city
69.
actually incorporated in September, isn't it?
No, yeah.
And you have a team already?
no, I mean, this is it. And remember, this is September of 19, so it's over a year from now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's almost a year and a half.
So this was really to ask you, or I guess to inform you, and then just
And then
make sure you guys were okay with us going out. Actually, it's more of the historical society going out and saying, and recruiting volunteers to be on the planning team for the event. So they plan to go, find
Yeah.
people.
I think the commission ought to have, maybe we could take a vote of support
Yeah,
for this event.
right.
And now we can, because that's going to be recorded, and it'll come up on, if anybody watching TV after this. But we've got a definite position that the City Planning Commission
Has,
is in full support, if we go to it, of this event.
okay, would you like to make that motion?
But I also want to make sure that you guys are okay with who's involved with planning the event, because if we, or how we go about getting the volunteers to plan the event is very important. If they come from the Historical Society, if they come from, new blood, so to speak, in town.
They can do a replace.
You're gonna need people from all over town.
This is just the event planning
Right.
body.
Historically,
Yeah, you have the youth commission, you have the historical society, you have the San Juan Bautista group, which is a group in itself. You have the strategic planning committee. I mean, you got people in all those groups right there
That Rotary.
that normally participate in most events.
With the Freemasons, we've got all kinds of people we could ask to help us with this.
And of course, you got the churches, the Glad Tidings, you got the mission itself, and also the state park.
Lots of history.
And they have groups and committees that, not from town, but they have separate groups and committees that are,
the Plaza History Association.
they meet every month.
So the request, I guess, is for more, our idea was to go pick various people, recruit them for the planning team. So this is, we're in the planning stages. We're just at the beginning. We want to strategically select people. Maybe one approach is to select people from each of those major volunteer organizations, and then they make up the planning team.
Okay. And then you want approval next month?
Pardon me?
And then you would like to present this and ask for our approval next month?
Right, and then, so this is only, how are you okay with us going out recruiting, and it's like a couple of us recruiting, or do you guys want to recruit
I don't think we have any any say in the matter anyway.
You're going to have the committee, the fiesta committee, is what you're going to create.
Correct,
And it's not the planning commission, it may have a planning commission on it, a
correct.
council on it, but it'd be fiesta committee, and that's a body by itself, because you may be collecting money, have the different budgets. But something to keep in mind, we had a fiesta at the mission every year until about 3 years ago. The people who have been running it aged out. And there was nobody to pick up the slack, and it ceased to exist, and it came back as a much smaller function. So when you get this group together, they've got to go knocking on doors and twisting arms to get volunteers. It's not going to happen by itself. There's been a national trend a decreasing trend in volunteerism in America. And you could Google that, you just see the thing going down. The Greatest Generation gave us a lot of stuff, and that was a group that built the VFW and did the Fiesta. After Korea, it started going down, down, down. After Nam, it's down the hill. And this we have to overcome. There's a lot of folks coming over the hill for Mass on Sundays. There's going to be a second Mass, another Mass on Sunday. It'll be in Spanish. That's how many people we're talking about. We need to get somebody to get in there and pull some volunteers out of that group because they're younger than everybody else. And they make the point of coming from the Central Valley over the hill to our mission. It reminds them of home. So I think the success is going to be in finding new blood, young blood, and I think it's going to be in that group.
So, do we want to open or not?
I still don't understand what we have to do with this.
We're going to come up with a proposal on this.
I'm a little bit confused by it, yeah.
Okay,
And we'll give our
we'll
blessing.
see what happens by June.
I mean, you've got a consensus right now that nobody here that they have part of this.
Yeah.
And we're in support.
Right.
The G writes this thing out, we say, we like this.
So what's the motion?
There is none.
There's no motion?
There is
No.
none.
So is there consensus?
There's-
That we're going to support it, or what do we tell?
She can go ahead and prepare a resolution for support because there's nobody opposing it.
Okay.
Right, thank you. All right, any other concerns then?
Seth, do you need any more from us to make this thing go?
No, that helped, a lot of good
Yeah.
input there.
All right, yeah.
Right. And now we're on to discussion items, okay? We're going to look at the timeline of past amendments to the general plan. And I would like to know what that timeline looks like.
What does that mean?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
I want to know what happened between the former general plan that we had prior to us adopting the current one, because there are some discrepancies. I'm going to disclose that I have talked to the owners of the Fault Line Restaurant, and I know that they've talked to Mr. Kennedy too, about the fact that they're included in the state park, in the public lands on this new map. And there's 3 properties over there that should not be included in the public lands.
The map, that zoning map where it's a mess and it
I
needs
know,
to
and
be,
this is why we want to discuss it, because we want to clean it up,
and I'm all for helping out on that one.
okay?
I think what we need to do then is come up with all the changes we make and do it in a block, because you're only allowed to amend the general plan so many times a year.
Right.
So
It's up
do
to-
one big cleanup.
Yes, I would prefer that. So, at this point though, is there any other concerns that anybody else has?
No, I'm with you on that. I've looked at this map a couple of times. Matter of fact, I talked to James a couple times, and we both just stared at it in disbelief that some of the, well, prime example over here on the Rancho Vista project, there's a, right next to it, there's a jag that goes onto the Manning Ranch, and that's not how the property goes. It goes straight across, so there's...
So is this something for staff to do or for the planning commission to do? In other words, are we going to have a separate meeting for this, or is somebody going to, because it's going to come before the city council eventually, so how do we prepare and educate ourselves to what we want to do here?
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder
So we're
if I
gonna do
want
this
to
a
talk
separate
about
meeting?
How this came to be and why it's...
Or is staff going to just do this?
Mr. Kennedy has it.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes.
I will recognize you now.
Okay. Madam Chair, Commissioners, and staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Todd Kennedy, City of San Juan Bautista, new planner, as we've just found out early in the meeting and all that, so I just thought I'd maybe formally introduce myself. Anyway, I have here like a quick little memo I made to myself as a little script, and that's one of the things that we were just proposing with the commission was just talking about is maybe we'd like to come back with more of a detailed report where it's an actual official item in the packet, in the agenda packet, so that way you can see a dissection from the...
Visuals too?
We could put that in there, you bet, you bet. I was able to do a little bit of homework, but I still have a ways to go. As you probably realize that I'm pretty new with the city, and I'm wrapping my hands and wrapping my head around stuff. And also, we talked a little bit about the Fault Line Restaurant. I'd like to mention that in the next item B down below too. But yes, as I could just give a little information, the City Council adopted the current general plan that we know on February 16, 2016 per resolution 2016-11. And I'd like to, take some time to look that over and then see how it evolved into what it is today.
I would appreciate that, and I would like to know what you find out.
Okay.
I would like that education also. So,
And then we just...
So we ask for a continuance at this point for the next meeting?
Well, just discussion, so.
It's a discussion item anyway, we're setting up for an agenda item.
A couple of months.
So-
Anytime you want.
What we can do is each meeting, like on June 12th, and then we can just like do little checkpoints, if you will. We can just show you, okay, the commission, this is what we have, this is what we've discovered so far, and then we just move on. So that way it kind of evolves into something. It just kind of like education, and then just begin a game plan.
Let's keep it an ongoing item.
Okay.
Every month he can report and whatever.
Okay.
He's got to have to package it, pass a resolution,
Right.
the city council.
Right. Then we'll make a recommendation to change something when we get it all. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Sounds
gonna be
good. I
huge.
like that.
So,
Okay. Let's go to the next.
Do you feel comfortable he's going to go do the task that you want him to do? As far as, okay.
Yes, I feel.
Making a report?
comfortable with
Okay.
that.
I think he can handle that.
I mean, maybe there's some...
I'm comprehensive.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know if she had some items that she wanted to share, you wanted to
One that
share.
was mentioned is one of
Okay.
them, but I want to know more about the whole planning thing, because I was in on a lot of those meetings when we were drafting this general plan. And so it doesn't seem to me like what we ended up with is what the public had kind of decided they wanted. So I just want to check a few things. Okay, so report from planner on current and upcoming projects. Let's hear about it.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Once again, Todd Kennedy from the city planning division here. Yes, I was able to compile a little bit of a list, and yes, a great deal of development is taking place in San Juan Bautista. Development projects include anything from large-scale single-family residential at Rancho Vista and Copperleaf to building permit reviews for anything from trench work to the replacement of wireless communication equipment on existing wireless that we've just reviewed in the last couple of weeks or so. Staff has had recent conversations with prospective applicants. They include one who is anticipating to do some work, finish up the project at the Fault Line Restaurant, and ultimately reopen it. We had a lengthy discussion. We had a good time talking about it, and even coming from my background, the Fault Line Restaurant, something my family's been involved with as well. Heard a lot of good stories about it, so that would be a good thing. Also, staff met with two prospective applicants who are anticipating on opening up a smoothie shop in the downtown area. So, based on discussion here internally, it'd be a good market to sell to, especially the kids that come to town, for their field trips and all. That'd be a good market to cater to them as well. Also, other projects include the D'Ambrosia or Hillside Vista subdivision, 27 units, residential units anticipated. 957 First Street, that is 4 residential parcels anticipated. And also infrastructure with wells and with other capital improvement projects, and also Midnight Express. I'm sure as you remember earlier this year, that already got approved by resolution and from the Planning Commission, and they're anticipated to construct a 10,000 square foot warehouse and refrigerated distribution center over there on San Juan Hollister Road, and we're just trying to kind of work it through the details in terms of road improvements right now with them at this time. So I think that's pretty much it, if my city manager...
Yeah, there was one other one, a coffee cart, same sort of thing. Somebody approached the city to get a license to do a coffee cart to promote coffee or sell coffee to the parents of the kids going to the mission. So that was another one that came up.
Smart.
To the mission, are they going to be selling it on state property, or?
They're probably going to be on the sidewalk here. It just came in this week, but it's an unserved market of, folks that have to wait around for their kids to go through the tour here, and so somebody's going to do it.
They're supposed to be with the kids when they go through the state. The state requires one adult supervisor per so many, 5 to 7 students. And the problem is, they end up going and having coffee and leave us with the kids.
Well, the coffee's going to be right here. They're bringing a coffee cart. The whole idea is to bring a cart in this area. It's like a street cart, a walking cart.
Push cart.
Kind of like a hot dog stand, but for coffee.
Yes, I've seen it. I know what you're talking about. But this also brings to mind
Is that going to be
food trucks.
coming for us for approval, or that's just information at this point in time as far as the coffee cart goes?
Well, they came to...
It's just discussion now.
It's
Yeah,
just a discussion thing.
this is just...
So is it going to come to us for approval or something like that? And a
Well, it's a
permit?
possibility.
You don't know?
They're not even possibilities, it does or doesn't.
Pardon me?
No, fucking change.
Thank you. Okay, so are we going to accept some,
I think that's one to watch.
okay,
I don't know where it's going, but I got some concerns, more detailed, but yeah, it's something I think we should look at.
well, if we're gonna look at that, we should look at food trucks too. Because we've had those in town too.
Yeah, we need to find if do we have any ordinances on that stuff? That's
Those can
Our
be-
licensing for that,
those
that's,
can call-
No ordinances.
No ordinances on that.
That's a good question. Is there ordinance or is there, that needs a permit for something like that? And should it come before us? I don't know if we have a rule for that, or an ordinance for that.
I don't think there is, but we can take an action to go look at any...
Yeah.
I know there's nothing for a food truck. I don't know about a small food stand, like a cart type. I didn't research it yet. Did you?
After looking over the coffee cart, I know what the commission's talking about. They came in for the business license. After reviewing it, crossing the zoning code, and in the municipal code as well, there wasn't anything to prohibit it. And as long as it's within, proper locations and so forth. And after talking with our Public Works Department, they didn't have a problem with it as long as it didn't obstruct. And anyway, so that's why we're able to go ahead and move forward with it. It went through the proper business license reviews, though.
Yes, now, Commissioner, we allowed one at, 18th Barrel. They were gonna bring a food truck and do a sign there to meet the needs of the people, and then I guess they didn't get the liquor license, they didn't get the family liquor
Yeah,
license.
and we have a list of items, business items, that whether it's permitted or not. Do we not? And maybe that's something they can look under as far as our ordinances go.
Because I've seen these trucks are out there. They're not-
There's a list of everything that's permitted and not permitted.
yeah, they're not regulated.
When you get those things out there, they're destructive to the brick and mortar people, especially when they plant themselves and then start putting their tables and chairs on the sidewalks. If they're doing Salinas.
That would be a food, we're talking about food truck?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they're getting an economic advantage over everybody else because they're not paying property taxes or street taxes to be on that thing. A business license everybody gets, but they're getting a place to put their truck at taxpayers' expense, basically.
Yeah,
I have real concerns about this.
our city ordinances, as far as the zoning ordinance that we have, there's also a list that goes with it, what you can or cannot do in a particular zone within the city, and whether it's permitted or not, whether you have to get a permit for it or not. So that you might want to go through all that and see if any of the things that you might be approached with it will be governed for us to come up as an agenda item. Maybe that would help you bring it forward if you had to. Other than just a discussion.
When we gave Eaton Grill, we had 2 6-month reviews, which could have pulled their use permit in case of any problem.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of permits that...
They didn't have any.
Yeah,
the first one was no issue.
and of course it costs us to get a permit too, so...
Just in case.
I have a question about the Midnight Express group. Have they pulled any permits yet? Grading permits or anything?
Let's see, I'm going to go based on my previous experience. Madam Chair, through you to Commissioner Friels. Kind of that formal, make sure I'm addressing it.
He's going through you.
Yeah. To answer your question, sir, they have not pulled any building permits to much of what I'm aware of at this point. We are right now working with them because of the proposed improvements, I'm sure as you're aware of, with San Juan Hollister Road, and we're kind of working with them on that aspect right now. We've had a review with our city engineer, our city engineering staff, and we anticipate to be meeting internally to discuss it further on there. But to answer your question, they have not pulled building permits at this point.
Is there a timeline that they have? How long of a window do they have before they have to come back and start the process all over again? A year, 4 or 5 years? I mean,
I'll have to check in with that on the resolution, see if the resolution, has like any kind of time limit for them, and then we could report back to you.
If it doesn't have anything in the time limit, would we have anything in the municipal code about that type of, once an applicant is approved, they have a year and a half or 6 months or whatever to get the process going? I'm just curious to see how long this will get drug out,
Well, like I said, we'll have to look into that and keep them informed.
Well, the D'Ambrosia Hillside Vistas came up, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago. Did you guys, were any of you on that?
Yes, we didn't.
So that is still active. They can still act on that. So for that residential development, it's at least 4 years, because Todd looked into that one, because I said, hey, what's going on with this? We still have all these tentative maps and improvement plans, and is it still valid? He reached back out to these.
Is that a vested tentative map?
Yes, sir. From what I'm able to find so far, once again, Commissioner, sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Franco, sorry. I was able to research, and so far I was able to find what we have internally is an approved tentative map. They anticipate to come back. I spoke with the applicant, and he was telling me they're trying to get things sorted out on their end, and they anticipate to come back for ultimately full build-out is what we anticipate.
So it's still a tentative map?
Correct, sir. From my findings at this point, yes, sir.
So that's still, they can still act on that. They can still continue the process. So I'm just thinking that it might be a similar timeline.
Well, that was, I think we're a little bit different because we went through the whole approval process for the Midnight Express. Has been, I believe the city council already voted on it too. Did they approve it?
That was actually a commission item because I think it got approved by resolution. I don't know if it went to council.
I don't know if it goes to council.
Yeah.
If appealed, okay.
Yeah.
So that's already been approved. This other one, it sounds like it's still kind of ongoing, like Ernie was just asking. It sounds like they're going to have to come and see us again What's her name? Ambrosa. Are they going to have to come and see us again because it's just a tentative map.
Right.
So, yeah, to come up with the improvement plans and...
Yeah, so they have not, their project hasn't been fully approved yet, so...
Correct.
As opposed to this project's been approved to move on, I'm just curious if we have something in our municipal code that says, once a project is approved,
What's the timeline?
Can they just lock up that property for forever and not build on it?
Right.
I'm just curious about that.
No, I understand your concerns.
We've approved a few projects, and I haven't seen dirt getting moved on any of them, so...
we're trying to get our hands on some of this stuff, so what are the other ones that you're thinking of that got approved that just are stagnant?
The two-story on the end of 2nd Street.
Right across from the DM.
Right across from the D'Ambrosa. Forgot that gentleman's name, but I would thought, the way he was...
Manuel Lopez?
Yeah, the way he made it sound, he was going to take off and get it done, and
Yes, and
we haven't seen anything.
nothing's happened.
Across from the D'Ambrosa, so...
On 2nd
Where
Street.
the old preschool used to be.
I'm sorry, 3rd Street. I'm sorry, 3rd Street.
Where the old preschool used to be.
He's been in City Hall in the last month.
Has he?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it was, but I have seen.
So that's why I want to get all these kind of work in progress things really cleared up. The brewery?
We pulled,
Yeah.
right? We shut them down.
And then there's a two-story structure.
No.
Home, I believe, on Franklin Street. And that's across from Fault Line.
He has looked at that one, or the building inspector looked at that.
Right, so that's a good one too.
That's still underway. They're building it slowly on the weekends, and it's fully...
Welcome Center.
Yeah, I think that was...
The red building. Yeah, I think that's what I think.
That one's not stagnating. It kind of looks like it is, but I check on it quite often.
Yeah, and also the brewery.
Yeah, I did note the brewery.
Yeah, that's another thing that...
So I would make a recommendation that the planning person come in and give a status report on all the active projects and the stages and the timelines, to your point, how long, what's the expiration date on each of these. Just have a little matrix with all the active...
And building permits are easy to work with because the state law says if you don't do something after a period of time, permit's dead.
Yes,
And
then they...
then if I want to change it, you're stuck because you got to reapply. But as long as you pound a couple of nails, they're going.
I'm just wondering too about the cutting horse, because they came in for a sign review for Billy's Steakhouse or something, and we haven't
Heard from them either, no.
And Casa Rosa is still...
And Casa Rosa is still in limbo, yes.
Okay.
a lot of potential here.
Casa Rosa is the, not the Rosa house, not the wooden one, the pink one. What's up, and what about the wooden one? Is that one, did they come in for something as well? Are they doing some improvements on the Rosa house?
Yeah, the Rosa house, that's it, yeah.
Rosa's house? No.
No, there's somebody living there.
But there's
No, there's nothing
no issues there,
pending on
okay.
that.
Yeah,
We got Harvey.
but you might want to get a hold of...
Harvey's lockup is underway. They're making the improvements on the backside of Harvey's lockup with the sidewalk. So that is definitely in making progress.
I'm glad you asked that, because their fire suppression system has not been activated since they put it in. This is a major building. It's an entire city block
And it's by our house.
of mixed use, and it's got a massive fire load in it, and the sprinkler system should be working. It hasn't been, it's been charged to 50 pounds, but I mean, the wiring's not even hooked up for the alarm system. So, and I've asked, this is the third time I've asked that this needs to get done.
He was doing nothing until the commission threatened to pull him out.
So I'm thinking that you and the building, Tim.
Myself and Tim.
Yeah, that you both sit in on this report. And until we are very comfortable with where all these working project structures are, And even the business license coming in, I think it's important that you guys understand what's happening and where it is in the timeline, and so, yeah, we'll get to you and Tim to kind of do a report and be able to answer questions.
Yeah.
Things in litigation.
Tim is the permit tech, and he's also getting his building inspection license, and he's also code enforcement and animal control kind of stuff. He wears a lot of hats.
Who's our current building inspector?
Greg, he's from Four Leaf. Do you know his last name? Johnson.
Yeah, out of Hollister, yep.
And he has gone to look at Harvey's lockup, also the city engineer's working on Harvey's lockup. I saw him out there this week with the builder for that owner. And I've personally been over there to make sure that that's moving along. But I think the combination of those two, you and Tim, would be really good for this group to stay on top of this and maybe put pressure on some of these developers and permits to continue with the process.
If Harvey's going to probably just remind him that the commission is ready to have a public hearing to revoke his use permit.
Harvey's, did you say, sir? Okay. Harvey's lockup.
Yes.
Okay.
The storage facility.
When did that threat happen?
How many years has it been?
To revoke the use permit?
Yeah, it was what, a few months back here?
No, you brought it back years ago. They didn't.
Yeah, okay.
So we sent a registered letter. I went over there. It's been kind of in the top 3 priority to get that thing squared away. At least the sidewalk, that outside completion, I need to check on the fire, haven't looked at that. The inside,
No, the
fire
fire suppression system is not active. If you go on the outside of the building on the right, as you're looking at the building on the right-hand side, you'll see the big red valves. There's a turn valve. It's, the stem is supposed to be out. That means the system's on. And then there's another shut valve at the fire department connection. That's supposed to be turned on. And it's supposed to go to some type of central alarm system. If the bell goes off and everybody's asleep at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, they don't hear the bell and there's an active fire or the sprinkler system has gone off. It has to go to somebody and tell them, hey, it's happened. A central alarm system, and then they contact 911. But it's a significant building in town for that.
See, the city issued the permit, so the city has a responsibility here because people are thinking it's safe when they use that place because the city issued a permit. Well, we've let them be there without having to comply with all the safety factors. So if the thing burns down, he's going to look at
The city.
people's pockets. And that's always been my concern.
Okay. Well, now we have this building code enforcement person on staff, so this will help run down this, but I want to keep all the list of open items and concerns, help us get these on the table, because we may not be able to just pull. It's hard to go through 1,000 files to figure out where things have been left open, because the records aren't that.
Yes, well, we'll keep our eyes open too and report to you.
Who owns the fault line now? Do anybody know who bought it?
Fernandez.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Fernandez. I don't have their information with me right now, but they're the ones that looks like they've actually just purchased, and they just want to know what the next process is in order to get it open. And that's what brings into concern about the current zoning, as you can see on the map right there. It's all zoned public facility, which it's interesting, but it doesn't allow restaurants there.
Yeah, public facility with the state park, they just kind of included it into the state park. And that meant, it looks like Neubauer's property and Old Ravenino home is also included in that.
Yeah, that should have been culled out, those sections.
Well, I have an old map here where it's called out, but the other ones, the recent ones, it's all in public.
I have a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, public comment request.
All right. May come forward.
Thank you.
Please identify yourself.
Speaking of the fault line, I just want to make a comment. I think you probably know that it used to be,
State your name,
Huh?
State your name.
Oh, Cara Vonk, San Juan Bautista.
Thank you.
It used to be the Almaden wine tasting room at one time, and I don't know if this is generally known, but the garden was designed by a very famous person called Thomas Church. And so that is really very historic. And just looking at the gazebo, it has a very interesting and unusual roof line, and it just looks like it's in very bad condition. And I've noticed that the garden has been completely redone. I think it's been bricked in pretty much, or, pavers. But, so I'm a little bit concerned about, the historic status of the Thomas Church Garden that was part of that.
Well, is it deemed a historic? I don't think there is a historic label on it as far as historic status. It just...
We'd have to check.
Yeah.
I didn't double check it since it just came up tonight, but people should know that, the garden was designed by a very famous person. Thomas Church was his name. So, but yeah, we should, anytime work is done on a building, we should check the list, the historic inventory, to see if it's on the list and how it's designated.
I don't believe it is, but...
So, yeah, I don't know if it's on there or not,
No.
without double checking it.
But it's great that they're going to do another restaurant. We desperately need another restaurant.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
right. It has a beautiful view.
Yeah.
So isn't part of the planning process to check the inventory when it comes for the permitting? And I don't know when they pull permits for that work, but as far as that vetting process, isn't that part of what would come to?
When we review, that would be, it's always been my practice, to check and see historic significance and so forth. That's what the Fernandezes were telling me, is that they actually have someone on board that is familiar with historic preservation. So, that's part of our due diligence.
So did that request come through this planning commission? Were any of you guys on the planning commission?
No.
No, this is this is fairly new, what they're doing here now.
If I could just sort of attest to this, because like I said, this is all stuff I'm kind of educating myself on and all that. The work that's being taken place out there, what we were told by, the applicants, is that there's an old garage and an accessory building right next to there. And what happened was, the information that we were able to dig up and get from the applicant is that a tree fell on the building. And it fell down. That's what they were telling us. So, anyway, we decided to go ahead and process that, take that statement. But during the reconstruction, during the demo permit, we were able to find a permit number. What happened was the roof came down. That's what once again, we're kind of just going based on their word. But during the demo, what happened was it was so much damage that the entire building of that section had to be taken out. But then it was discovered the slab underneath right there was in pretty bad shape. That covers the entire building itself, not the restaurant part though. And so anyway, that's what had to be replaced, and that's what they had to be worked on. So they wanted after I met with the Fernandezes, they were saying our permit ran cold. Can you look into that? And I say, yeah. So I looked into that, and with myself and Tim, we did our research and talked to the architect, and they were able to give us some information. Then we were able to take that, find it in our system, and then we let them know what they need to turn into us. And we anticipate those plans to come into us before we can, they can proceed with any more work. So anyway, but from the staff review point of view, it's been deemed as all administrative, because really the building, the way it currently sat is non-conforming, legally non-conforming based on the current zoning code, public facility. But after looking it over, it's basically, there's a clause in the zoning code that's maintenance, operation and maintenance, and also if something gets destroyed based on act of God or, tree falling down, stuff like that, we're able to grant them, just go ahead and continue to build as is and get it back into shape. And that way it's built to current code and everything's up to speed again. That is the phase number 1 that they'd like to get done and knocked out before they proceed with opening up the restaurant again and moving forward down that process. So,
But what about the patio and the gazebo? Because there was a lot of work on the outside, on the right side of that structure.
I can contact the Fernandezes, and I can ask them that question.
So none of that came through Planning Commission last year?
There's been a couple groups in the last 5 years that have kind of tried to resurrect that. And I don't know if, and not being on the last 5 years, but I don't know what came about that. I know that there was an attempt, because it was a restaurant, and I think that it was wine tasting, then restaurant, and then stayed at a restaurant, and it kind of became a residence, more or less. So I think they want to bring that restaurant back.
Edie lived there, she also, when Edie owned it, she also lived there.
Yes.
In that building that was destroyed by the tree. There was an apartment in there.
Yeah, and that did happen. A large chunk of that Monterey pine cypress came down on the roof. I mean, it was significant.
Because they've made some major improvements on that property, on the right. Like completely repaved, redid the decking, put a new gazebo, put a whole walkway, put a fence around, or a nice handrail around the whole thing, kind of connected it into the Mission garden picnic table area. So I'm surprised
that pathway was the original pathway. You could go from the Mission into the Almaden wine tasting facility from the Mission property along that pathway.
I'm surprised that nobody did that work ever get permitted. No. That work never got permitted.
I think that pathway is church property, isn't it?
Up to the gate.
Up to the gate.
So
they had talked, I know that they had talked to the church about redoing that pathway, and so they went ahead and redid it.
Yeah, I'm talking about from the gate that you can go through from the church.
That is significant.
That whole backyard patio, there's probably a heater and a gas pit, and a whole big improvement that happened back there. Probably $150,000 improvement that happened back there.
Are you dealing with non-conforming uses?
I'm sorry?
You're dealing with a non-conforming use?
With that part of the work that we just described about the building,
The thing about non-conforming uses, they're allowed to stay until they go down, and then they cannot be replaced, because that's how you get back into conformance with zoning.
Like I said,
No,
I understand that. It's just that, based on our zoning code and based on just, having them, is that operation and maintenance, and then if it came down, based on looking over, there's a certain value in there, 75% of its value or less, something around those. If I'm saying the words right based on the zoning code, we can definitely report that back, that they can do that they can go ahead and continue and go ahead and get it built up, and that's what they're able to show us. That's what we're able to determine as staff at the staff level, and we gave them the go-ahead and get that back into shape.
Well, I assumed that that's on the left side of the property. I assumed the whole right side of the property had gone through Planning Commission and got approval.
No.
I've been here 8 years and haven't seen it.
No.
See, and that was never discussed as part, and,
Because I walk back there all the time, so I know exactly the timing and of those improvements. So we're gonna have to look into that.
You could, the neighbors used to be the Lavaninos there in that adobe structure that with a stone wall. You might want to contact Teresa Lavanino. And that family's always been there, and she might know.
What's the name again, please?
Teresa Lavanino.
Lavanino?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
She might know, and she's a member of the Strategic Planning Committee.
She lives in Hawaii.
She moved out?
Yeah, she lives in
She's been in Hawaii.
Well, but her family, she grew up in that home.
Yeah.
And she may know, if you want to know who were the previous owners, and maybe get some information about that, she might be a good source. Yeah.
Okay.
Previous neighbor.
Okay, now this is all point B in discussions that we're still on?
The report.
So next report will be a list of work in progress, improvements, how long they've been open, ETA of when they're gonna close,
Yeah, all
current
that stuff.
status. I think it's super important for the planning commission to know that kind of work in progress development.
Understood.
Yes, thank you. No, you got a lot to do.
Yeah, I know. I have my work cut out for me. Commissioners, if I may, if I could just go back to the coffee cart real quick, because that was kind of on my mind like during the discussion, because I was involved with that. I'll definitely say that. After cross-checking our municipal code, our zoning code, there wasn't anything to prohibit it or anything like that. It was just basically, kind of common sense type stuff, if you will. Cross-checked with our Public Works Department, cross-checked, and everything appeared to be in compliance, and that's when we went ahead and gave them their business license and moved forward with it. Or went through our review, I should say. But one thing I can say, and it's based on my experience, that if any kind of complaints were to come in from them, like if we were to get called, we do have that authority to yank their business license. Or at least I can yank their zoning, which automatically kills their business license.
Okay.
So we do have that safeguard.
So if you guys want to take an action to write, or have us, or give us an action to draft an ordinance around carts, around food trucks, around...
Yes.
I'm going to ask staff to prepare
If it doesn't exist.
regulating carts and food trucks and other mobile.
Food.
If it doesn't exist.
It might take a while to hash through it, but I think it's
At least we've got it down.
Yeah.
Something to put on their workload.
It's one of those things that we can always check.
Yeah, we can second it. If it doesn't exist, I would recommend that you search the ordinances and zoning laws that we have here, and it might be listed in there somewhere. There might be something in there. So you might want to start with that and then educate yourself as far as what is and what isn't. And then maybe we might want to draft one up for the next meeting. So,
I will say
second,
one more thing about food trucks. There's a food truck that parks out in the city limits, out on the 156. I don't know if you, and there's also business pop-ups that happen. So that's city property. On the way out of
Near the school?
on the way out of town, across the street from the school, in back of the motorhome park. So I've had the building permit tech go out there and tell them to leave or get a business license. So if people see that, they should report it. I mean, I get calls and so forth.
Is this where your strawberry stand?
Correct.
Oh, those kind of things, okay.
Correct.
That kind of pop-up.
So if you guys are not gonna, permit like a farmer's market here, open air market, food trucks in town, that's part of the town over there. So we're gonna, until we get a clear direction on all these little pop-up businesses, we're not allowing that to happen out there either.
Okay. So, do we want to...
Have them look into it and draft something.
And draft something up, and do we need a second for this?
Well, it's under discussion.
So there is no, okay.
We
Well, I
won't
was
do any
just
action,
wondering,
right?
somebody said we need to make a motion, so I...
I don't think we'd make it, do an
Okay, so
action on
draft
the
something
discussion
up
item.
and we'll...
We're asking is we're running it to staff, so.
Just, yeah.
By consensus, we can say, staff,
Yeah.
check out this.
Yes, staff check into this, okay.
Well, couldn't you guys take an action to ask us to draft?
I move that we ask staff to prepare documentation for regulation of food trucks, what do they call
we
it?
have street carts?
Street carts and other
Pop-ups.
mobile food vending.
What is a
Mobile
pop-up?
vending, period.
Somebody help me with pop-up. What is a
Well,
pop-up?
where a vendor just parks themselves and puts a little pop-up
Umbrella?
thing, like the strawberry guys that are also out here.
Also, what happens in some of the
129.
venues, they pop up with little selling jewelry or selling...
I've seen them over here near the high school, selling ice.
And that doesn't fall under the...
They don't get a business license
Under the
for it.
business license of the...
And we don't get tax money for that.
Oh.
And we don't get any taxes from it.
Don't get me started with taxes.
Well, we'll have, so we did make a motion or an action item?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Commissioner Franco made a motion that we,
and we're clear what we want to do.
Well, we can draft something, we can work with it.
Okay.
Because right now, we're just in space.
To have the staff draft something that we can...
And have that on the agenda for next meeting.
Motion dies for lack of second? I need a second. I mean, if you made a motion...
I'll second it.
I need a second, too.
Okay.
I was going to ask for thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
Todd, is that enough for you to work with?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, you've got your marching orders. Okay. So we have a report from city manager on board report things here.
So I have a couple of things I wanted to let you guys know that were happening. They're coming up. One is, so...
Distribute that?
Yeah, I made copies in case people want to take
Yes,
notes on
please.
this. Yeah.
I like taking notes.
And you can give them the capital plan too. I think it's important for you all to know what staff is working on related to the look and feel of the city.
Okay, are we talking about the signs for fire department or are we talking about the electric vehicles?
We're going to go in order.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the signs for the
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
fire department. Okay, I see.
So Public Works is currently working on there's no sign in front of the fire department.
Saying it's fire department.
Saying it's fire department. So Public Works is working on a wooden sign. I went over and took pictures. He just started work on it this week. I took pictures of the draft or of his sketch. He's kind of stenciled it out on the wood. I don't want him to go through I don't want to go into the same mistake that happened with the city sign.
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that, and then also, I guess, get guidance on, would you like a package presented with the pictures, and then maybe we put it on the next, I tell them to hold off, we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yes.
And then you guys can see the pictures, the concept, the rendering, and then approve for him to go forward.
Yes, I would prefer
Yeah.
that.
That should be SJB or FJB.
Oh, B, yeah, that's a typo. The other thing around signage, let's add that to the agenda for the next planning, is for Joe or myself, or somebody from staff to present a proposal for the sign that goes in front of this fire department, so that it's not kind of beg for forgiveness, a sign pops up and that type of thing. The next is this old 1938 fire engine. It's been being restored. It's running. We're able to drive it now. We just got the brakes fixed today, so we're very excited about that. I was discussing this with Commissioner Friels, and he had the idea of trying to locate the old San Juan Bautista volunteer sign and hang it on that bay, because that bay is kind of going to be a historical bay and a tractor.
Is this the one on?
Yeah, this bay here.
Okay.
So this bay is not in official use. That's why we repainted the curbs here gray instead of red. And so during the weekends, certain times, we're going to pull that old truck out. It'll be a nice little historical eye catcher. And we want to hang the volunteer sign on that bay.
That's where it's always been. That's that big missing
Yeah,
spot.
where the holes are. And I just wanted to let everybody know that that was the intention.
See photos, are there photos?
Well, I had photos on my phone of the Joe sign, but I think we're going to wait, and then I'll put a proposal together.
The other sign was one that Zeller made 50 years ago, and it was hanging in, and it just disappeared one day. So I'd really like to know where it went.
So I've been told that everything related to the volunteers is in storage, and so we're going to go try to locate it,
Okay.
pull it out of storage, and hang the sign. Okay. The next topic is this electric vehicle chargers. So staff put together a survey application to get funding to put 10 additional EV chargers in place, and the proposed area is by Abbey Park where the other chargers are, and that we would restripe that street so that we could fit more vehicles in there at a diagonal. And then we put the charging stations right there.
Okay, there's a couple things on that I'd like to make some comments.
Okay.
Some of it has to do with PG&E and getting some information from them about the PUC set aside. There's grants available for a lot of this, like $90 million for charging stations on public properties. Grants are 80 to 90% covered. So if you put it on public property, there's also grants for specific to state parks to install chargers in their parking lots. What you might get them to do is to adopt the parking lot maybe along one of the near side streets to them, either along 2nd Street here or down by, I'm thinking where the pepper tree is.
Yeah, that's,
You know?
The state park doesn't own the streets, though.
No, but if they designate it as their parking lot.
that's Washington Street.
Yes, we can ask, you know, and if the state is flexible in their interpretation of the law and install spaces, and that would be a separate grant that could come through state parks. These are just things that I think we ought to research too. Getting monies for installing this stuff. You know, because there's quite a bit of money there.
Well, we did apply for the PG&E grant.
Okay.
That's what this is stating here, the funding through PG&E. So that's a grant that we applied for.
Okay, but there's also one for state parks.
Okay, that one I'm not aware of, so I'll look that up.
Okay.
So any other comments on the location? That's the proposed location for now. We discussed it at City Council, and that's the latest idea for the location. We thought we could fit.
They wanted that location, they liked that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would see the street improvement, and that's what, I think that's supposed to come to us also if you're going to do, if you're going to change the parking.
The flow and the parking, yeah.
I'm sure that road's plenty wide enough for it, but
Right.
I think we're supposed to see that stuff. I'm
You
pretty
will.
sure.
And then, in fact, we'll go through it in the capital plan here shortly.
And you'll show us where all 10 spots will be.
Yeah, we have to see, I mean, we basically have to see the thing.
That sounds good.
Okay. So that's a good segue into this capital plan. Now, I don't know if everybody was at the city council, but what we're doing with the, going forward is we're putting together, it's actually some of this goes out 10 years, but most of it is a 5-year capital plan, and it's prioritized. And there's a lot of I would say procrastinated or put off high priority items for the city. So there's a lot of priority ones. We've got a lot of catching up to do in the city. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of what is happening, because a lot of them have to do with traffic flow, parks, buildings, street improvements, even some of the hydrant work. So this shows you what we're doing, the projects that were approved, the cost, the estimated rough order of magnitude costs, the timing of the capital improvement projects, which year they would happen in, and as we go through the budget process, we'll figure out which we can afford, which are the priority ones we can afford in 19, and we may have to push some of them off to fiscal year '20. So we were talking about street improvements, so I can just mention a few of these. So some of the street improvements that are on in the plan, number 8, it's not the highest priority, but Church Street between First and Second. Actually, that's by Plan Commissioner Freeman's house there. The Tuolumne and McCollum, 3rd Street between Tuolumne and McCollum, which never got done.
Yay.
Fifth,
I swear to God, there are so many potholes.
I know, yeah. Yeah, we can't even run the street sweepers because there's...
So you get your PhD, pothole dodging. I got mine in Belize.
5th Street between Polk and Washington. McCollum between 4th and Monterey. South 5th Street, Selwyn Hollister Road. The other one is very important, I think, for the Historical Society and the Planning Commission. There's a proposal to beautify the downtown crosswalks using like
Brick?
Historical brick.
Yeah,
What do they call that? Yeah.
They've done here,
Pavers?
they've done this in Copperopolis, and it looks great.
It's also a traffic calmer.
Yes, it is a traffic.
The traffic calming also on 4th Street and Selwyn Hollister Road with tabletop, kind of like the same tabletop speed calming that you see at the San Jose Airport. That'll be put into 4th Street and on Selwyn Hollister Road.
What are tabletops?
They're the things that are like in San Jose Municipal Airport. Minetta, have you gone to the airport?
No.
Okay, they're also in Ridgemark.
But what are
They ramp up, they go about,
the traffic hump as opposed to a traffic lump?
Big
they're
giant
called
speed
tables,
bump.
traffic tables.
That's what they're called now, okay. All right.
You ramp up, you kind of on a table and you ramp back down. So it limits the damage, or the damage is not a risk for the cars. Doesn't make you stop and go. You can kind of go down to 20 or 15 and go over that.
Yeah, it's as opposed to just a regular bump.
I have a question about that, since there's already 4 stop signs on 4th Street. And I know that the traffic recommendations said it really wasn't necessary to have this. I'm just trying to figure out why we're spending money on it.
Because those folks obviously haven't sat at 4th Street and watched the Grand Prix go by. That, I didn't buy into that whole digital traffic survey. Yeah.
So nobody believed the survey.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that everybody thinks that it was a waste of money and that there still needs to be traffic calming there. Either narrowing of the street, making it a one-way, or putting the speed tables in. I mean, I would say 100% of people that you talk to about that street are completely, vehemently fighting for more traffic calming there.
It's the smoothest street in the city.
Yes, I know it is, and a lot of people want to use it. Even I use it most of the time. I'm just trying, okay, what part of 4th Street are you talking about?
Well, we'll come back with the plans, like what Commissioner Fields was saying, or somebody was saying. We have to come back to you with the striping plan, with if there's proposal for a one-way versus two-way, if we're narrowing the streets, because community development, flow through the city, I think that's important for this body to approve.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just go through a few others that I think pertain to Planning Commission. So this activities in the summer, so we are working with the school to partner to install a fence around the basketball courts at the school. There's a park improvement master plan, 10-year master plan. So during as part of the impact fees for these developments, they are giving us a certain impact fee for parks. That's going to go into this park fund, and so we're going to have this, that's going to fund the strategic park plan that we're going to get from the strategic committee. Community center acoustics, I think, if that, some of these aren't, I think that's it, that really pertain to some of these are just building maintenance issues that you guys wouldn't really. Broadband got tabled for this year, and bringing fiber optic into the city. A solar plant was discussed. To have the whole city powered by solar, it's in discussions. It's too preliminary to do any budgeting around, but that's something that's still on the plan, but is not funded or prioritized yet. It's something that'll be discussed again next year. So that, I think I covered all the important ones for the planning area. Okay? The park vision. So the Strategic Planning Commission is working with a subcommittee to come up with a park plan. So we're awaiting the park plan, the strategic park plan. What are we doing with our 8 public lands in the city-owned lands, and how do we want to leverage these and use these? There is a kind of imminent, very urgent desire to beautify the Franklin Circle. So Franklin Circle, the surrounding residents have got somebody to volunteer to redo that whole circle, put a bocce court in, put a fines path in there, put a little toddler play area, a barbecue pit, and some garden boxes. And so I wanted you guys to be aware of that. It's not something that this person's evidently not available too much longer to do this work. But they would like to start work on this fairly quickly. They brought a sketch to staff. It looks really great. And I would like to ask for you guys to put it on the agenda and expedite this while we have a bird in hand.
Okay. Put it on the next.
Or even call for a special planning meeting just to review this.
I wouldn't go for a special, but too bad we didn't have it tonight.
Yeah.
That'd be good, because they could have come in and they should come in also and make a pitch for it. They're the ones who want it and tell us why and what's going to benefit the cities. We have to look at the cities as a whole, not just block by block.
Right.
So if this is going to fit, and I agree, I agree it's going to make an improvement in that neighborhood. I just keep wondering.
But is it, yeah.
But I think that their committee ought to come in and make a presentation and say, look, that's what we want to do.
I agree.
And we can go back and say, yeah, I support it.
Okay.
Next meeting, hopefully? They can pull it off?
I'll ask if, evidently this guy's, that they've got is kind of available now. But let me look into that. I'll let you guys know.
It is a creation or a recreation of a park, so we do have to see it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why I brought it up. And then I was concerned that I wanted to get the whole parks plan, even if a high level, how do you use each land before we decide on this one Franklin Circle.
We're going to probably need that for the zoning stuff anyway.
So that's why, but it's a chicken before the egg, because we've got people that are ready and willing to volunteer to do this work, and we hate holding people up if it's a great plan.
Well, yeah, for the Franklin Circle, I'm not as concerned about.
So I'll get back to them and just say, hey, as soon as you can, let's make the pitch to the Planning Commission, and they may give you the green light without having an overall strategic plan for the city.
Okay.
Okay. And then I missed this public parking vision, but one of the ideas that, and again, it's not for this
decision, but it's just for consideration, thought, maybe in a future agenda, is what Commissioner Friels was saying, the flow of traffic through town and the parking. So myself and talked to Mayor West about this. I think a few other people just brainstorming. The thought of doing a one-way into town on the Alameda and then starting to create a more narrow street with diagonal parking along that street, coming in on 3rd Street, and then numbering those parking places and putting one of those kiosk box so people from out of town pay for parking on that street. And then the city residents have a parking sticker. They don't get charged, they can park there. But collecting revenue for that street as well as 4th Street. So even considering going back the other way, one way on 4th Street out of town from Monterey Street down to the Alameda would be one way going back towards the 156, and you'd have pay for parking along that street. I think that might take care of a lot of parking needs for these festivals, and also would generate a lot of revenue for the city, and be minimal impact for residents because they would have their permits. So I wanted you guys to be aware of some of the discussion that's going on there, and it was part of the traffic calming that could be part of that solution. So probably in the next 3, 4, maybe 6 months, we'll come in with a proposal with the striping and the parking and that type of thing to you guys. But that's a big planning item for the next year.
Okay.
Are there any plans to move the city yard?
No. Is that a consideration?
No, somebody was saying something about it, that they were going to move.
Recently?
Yeah. And they were going to extend community hall or something like that, or add to it, or...
It's a terrible idea.
I'd like to recognize citizen Wong here.
Okay.
I guess I have a concern, because I know we do need more revenue and probably parking, but that is our historic district that you're talking about, and I'm a little bit concerned that we still maintain the historic character of downtown San Juan Bautista.
Okay, you're talking about the kiosks on
The kiosks and making it a one-way and, the parking and all that kind of stuff. It's really going to change the character of our downtown. And right now, 101 used to come right through town. So,
Yep. 156 used to come right through town.
Right,
101.
and I don't know, I think you really have to think about the historic character and what the impact would be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that input. Okay. Are there any other comments or concerns? All right. Sounds good.
On the next page?
Okay, parks and strategic plan report, that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Comments and reports, planning commissioner?
I had a couple questions if I could.
Okay.
The roundabout that's going to go on 1st Street, I've had a half a dozen people asking about this. Has it been seen and approved, or are we going to see it, that and then the entryway to Rancho Vista? I was under the impression we get to see that again too, because I don't think we approved the entryway and the roundabout.
You'll see it. It'll get presented.
It's in the future.
So it is upcoming.
Yeah, it's being engineered at the moment. I think they're coming up with the...
So it's a real thing. Good.
And just to say, I'm not against roundabouts. I think they're one of the greatest things in traffic, but I'm getting tons of people asking me, because I live over in that ballpark.
So that roundabout is being worked on currently. Are you working on it? I know James was. Are you aware of it?
I only know bits and pieces about it.
Definitely, there's a lot of work going into the design right now.
And then the entryway into it, I remember specifically we were talking about that, and that was supposed to, I thought that was supposed to come back to us because their original plan for it was not in compliance with our municipal, with our codes. It was like a, welcome to Mayberry type sign type thing.
Oh,
and I think that's the signage and all that kind of stuff.
Signage, yes.
Yeah, I think
You have that, so I think.
I don't think we allow, Vista Estates signs and, or whatever type of things on our subdivisions.
Todd's got it.
Okay.
He'll bring it back. Let's put that on the agenda for next.
See what the status is.
That sounds good. I'll work on it.
You mean the signs are currently there you're talking about now, or?
No,
They're proposed.
if you're looking at, where the bridge, they have the bridge across there. Well, it goes into a bridge and then it goes into like they had like a wall of some sort, when you're entering.
As far as the main entrance for the...
Yeah, you're entering the subdivision. It was almost looked like you're entering another municipality. It was almost like, it was, Rancho Vista was a different town.
I don't remember we never saw anything like that, as far as brought to our attention.
Well, we saw the design reviews and all that stuff, but we never got to that. For some reason, that wasn't part of the whole design review of the overall look of that entryway. And it goes totally against our entry standards too.
Okay. So we would like to see that.
It'd be nice to see what they've got, what they're going to do.
We got it.
And I think we have some other...
How's that going to blend in with the other, the other development there? I mean, not the development, the other, what's the name of that? Bridge? Creek Bridge.
Yeah, if you notice,
It's going to be a whole different ballgame.
Creek Bridge doesn't have a sign saying you're in Creek subdivision because it's not allowed. Copperleaf over here won't have it either.
That's a good...
Still have these things temporary now to attract.
And what about...
The signage is up right now. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but I'm talking about the permanent Welcome to Rancho Vista sign. That's got a monument type of sign. That's,
I hear it.
In some cities, they have
Is that roundabout going to come with a design for the monument sign too as well?
like this is real over here.
I don't know enough.
As a gateway to San Juan?
I don't know enough of the detail.
Okay.
I think you guys could influence that.
it's right in your front yard, so you get to kind of sit on the sidelines and watch on that one.
I think
something of the gateway we had at the 101 highway, that there was be some kind of a belfry or bell tower with a sign that says San Juan Bautista, welcome to San Juan or something like that. Was kind of proposed from the San Juan Bautista committee that was working on monument signs.
The monument sign is...
And there was also another monument sign that was supposed to go out at the Alameda and Highway 156.
What's wrong with the sign that's up there now?
And there was also a crazy idea of putting a roundabout on 156 in the Alameda.
No, that's a Caltrans thing.
That's a Caltrans thing, you're going to get...
I know, but
That'd have been great.
it'd be nice to have roundabout. I think it would just speed up traffic through there and slow it down as it comes into town. So anyway, yeah.
Okay.
But there is a proposed sign, a monument sign for the entryway at the Alameda and 156.
we have seen that.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be on the school side.
And that's through the San Juan committee.
Right,
The San Juan
right.
Committee is working on that. Correct.
Be nice to know where they're at with that.
Come forward with your question, Ms. Long.
Carvel, just wanted to mention that under our design guidelines, we don't like gated communities.
Yes,
So
that's why we were
that
wondering.
dovetails with what Mr. Friels was saying.
Interesting.
Yes, that's what we're aware of. Thank you.
It's very specific.
Yes.
Yep. So it'll be interesting.
So, are we finished with planning commissioners and more comments? City planner, do you have anything to add?
I think we have our work cut out for us, and it sounds like the way I'm kind of interpreting it, if I could just make this comment, it's like a brainstorming, meeting, discuss what's in front of us, and then how do we go and solve it? Because in my short time of being here, I can already see that, we've discussed this internally, we're all new, we're all learning, and we intend to really just revamp and reorganize the internal process here, and just, it's going to be a mission, but it's going to take some time, but we intend to get it done.
When are you in your office?
I'm there Monday through Friday, and it's typically between 8:30 and 5.
8:30 and 5, okay.
Yeah, I'm there full-time.
Good to know.
So this is a benefit of the permitting, all the fees that we're getting from these developments fund full-time folks here to help manage.
Which is great.
Manage all the inspections, manage the planning process. It's a cost recovery model.
I just wish I had known earlier that he was already on board, so I could come down and talk to him.
Yeah, I talked about it in the last city council.
Okay.
What's that?
I said some of us aren't able to make those city council meetings.
So, city manager, you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. There's a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah.